Annual National Digital Information Infrastructure and Preservation Program, our annual meeting. It's great to see all of you and some new faces here. NDIIPP is now 11 years old. In addition to our initial partners, we've expanded the preservation network this year to 22 new partner organizations. That includes 6 consortia organizational members that together represent 867 different organizations. Not a bad reach.
My name is Presnall. I work for the Jefferson Institute, and I'm last on the list today. So, thanks especially to Martha for gathering us all here today. I feel especially honored because I am not a librarian, nor an archivist, nor an internet entrepreneur. I don't work for any big state institution or any of that. I work for a lowly think tank. I'm a political economist, so I'm very much a stranger in this room. But I think that's part of what's so exciting about this gathering and the Alliance itself is that it really does bring together unusual suspects. And I think that this institute is a public policy research institute. That's how we were founded anyway. We do a lot of our work in Eastern Europe, and I spend a lot of my time between Barents Sea and the Chinese border of Kyrgyzstan in Central Asia. And in many ways, we came to our digital archives work by happenstance. Along the way, we use archives a lot. And our local partners in countries where we work use archives a lot for their own research. So we're users, if you like. Heavily addicted users. And yet the archives that we encounter and the partners that we work with are really struggling in these countries. And especially in Southeast Europe, where we concentrate a lot of our work, it's not just the standard kinds of challenges that you encounter in archives with resource constraints, and they're dealing with post-conflict situations, right? So in Serbia, where during the 1999 bombing, they had to box up their archives, break them up into 5 pieces in the hopes that that at least only smaller portions of the archives would end up being totally obliterated. So the challenges that they have to deal with are fundamentally extreme. And I think in many ways that lends itself towards extreme creativity as well, in terms of dealing with solutions. And it was in the conversation that we had there with a good partner of ours at the Ministry of Defense in Serbia, who was the director of the Historical Institute. After way too many coffees, we were talking about something completely different, and he leaned back in his chair and he said, this was a nice conversation, but let me tell you about a real problem. It's our archive. We've got this global treasure, and it is literally falling apart. We've got it, locked up in halls, in men's bathrooms. The earth is literally taking it back, and we don't know what to do about it. At the same time, they have tremendous demand on this archive, especially on the 1990s. You mentioned that the state itself wanted to learn a lot about those days. There are a lot of historians, of course, who have interest. The Hague War Crimes Tribunal had tremendous interest in accessing those files. And the archivists themselves were really, honestly, passionately hoping that they could deliver on that demand, but they just physically couldn't. And so how do we deal with this kind of situation? And I honestly had no idea whatsoever. I was at a total loss. But we went back to various friends of ours in the United States, especially Maryland State Archive, Library of Congress, U.S. National Archive, the Jefferson paper series at Monticello, which in many ways sets a real gold standard, and got all kinds of great advice and thoughts about the kinds of challenges that are faced, the kinds of software solutions that are available out there. Took all of that back to Serbia managed to get some small grants together from Rockefeller Brothers Fund and the Knight Foundation. Two fundamentally different approaches. Rockefeller from Rockefeller from a post-conflict reconciliation, Knight Foundation from a freedom of information perspective, and created at that time, using proprietary tools, a workflow management solution to help Serbia move their archive from a physical and deteriorating condition into a digital arrangement, and from the full archival perspective, not just scanning. That was the first thing to get into their heads. It's not just about scanning. And that was itself an interesting exercise in the compromises that we had to make along the way, because for them, they really were never going to have the resources to preserve their physical holdings. And so getting it into digital, it was almost their last hope of having any kind of sustainable preservation strategy at all. Still, those physical holdings which have been digitized are not in the kinds of condition you would want for long-term strategy for preservation. And ultimately, we, after about 3.5 years, we've now exited that exercise with the Serbian Military Historical Archive. We got them up to a volume. They're doing about 100,000 pages a month. By the time we left, they had done about 3.5–4 million pages altogether. They have a research room that is constantly packed with people. This year, they're going to go online with a website for online access, and archive to work with, but a city where we can find folks with holdings that are of value and interest, folks that have infrastructure, civic levels, all engaged actively together towards this common mission of informing and enlightening in order to empower.